Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 5 or 6 of
That's That.
That's That.
And that's that.
Well, that's that.
There we go. With the Dreamboats. And today, we're joined by Andy Cahan.
Andy Cahan, the one and only.
There
Get
he
the
is.
book. That was a close
In
call.
person.
The man on the book.
That's what I looked like when I was a person.
The most famous musician you've never heard of, but
At one
now you've
time,
heard of him.
I used to have hair. I really did. You can believe it. It's there.
I can believe it.
It
I can
was all
feel
there.
it.
We have evidence.
We have evidence. So we have Andy on the show. And just to give you a little bit of even before a backstory on Andy, I mean, the fact that we've been recording in this living room, there's a drum set here for the past 2 days, and Andy was recording some things. But Chris, can you give him a little intro here?
Andy's he's been everywhere. He's been playing with everyone. He's the legend, the man himself, played with all our heroes.
He played most notably with the Turtles.
And he's the most famous musician you've never heard of.
Yes, until now.
And the Turtles have a song that the Dreamboats have recorded.
Yes.
With Andy.
So Andy played in the Turtles for 40 years, which is a very, very long time. And we decided to record Happy Together by the Turtles yesterday. And it was a lot of fun.
It was amazing.
It was
a lot of
amazing.
harmonies.
Pretty
Better
long
than the
mission.
original.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we'll see. But Justin, what were your thoughts on all the buzz?
I think it's cool we made it through the whole thing last night. For the most part, there's a couple bells and whistles, but we really stuck it out to do all the instruments
I love
and
how Andy
background
just
vocals.
I just love how he just directed us to do all the background vocals
That's right.
and take it one step at a time.
Andy was telling us all of the harmonies and what to do, and we were just like, "What's the harmony?" He would say, "Ba ba ba."
Must have heard ba 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 about 15,000
really-
times last night.
I was guessing. I didn't know what I was doing.
Accurate guess.
Sounds accurate.
But they believed me, so it worked.
Well, it came out so well. I mean, by the
boy.
time this is out, maybe the single will be released.
Let them be the judge of that.
But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
It's going to be a #1 hit.
We'll play
You
it. We'll
watch.
put a clip of it over this,
Sure.
somewhere in this episode, maybe the beginning or the end.
Yes.
Miley Cyrus tried it, but she didn't get a hit. But the Dreamboats,
Step aside, Miley. Step aside.
that's it.
I like Miley's version. I like how she opens the lyrics as well.
Never heard of it. No, I haven't heard it.
Should we be explaining why we're wearing all these bandanas in
I
any
was
way?
just gonna say
Oh, that's
that. I was
right.
kind of explain.
Shout out to
No.
Elaine.
Elaine, hooking us up with these bandanas.
Shout out to Elaine. You're the best.
That's why we're wearing them. These are special bandanas, though. They're actually cooling bandanas. She knew we were hot out here in the desert because like 42, 45 every day Celsius. So she hooked us up with these bandanas. You put them in water for 10 minutes and you wear them around your head and it's cooling. So we gave one. We had 6 that were delivered to us. Thank you, Elaine, again. And now Andy has one.
I'm
thank
very
you so much.
proud.
Yes.
Proud.
We are the bandana boys.
In fact, the Dreamboats have a series of bandanas coming out that they're going to hand out at all their live concerts.
It was a merch idea that we're thinking about pulling the trigger on. Yeah, but these are really cool. When you first get them, they're flat. You don't think, and then as soon as you get them wet, they have these beads that just expand inside, and they just kind of hold a coolness to them. It's pretty
Yes, not a sponsored post, right?
cool. No, not at all. Thank you, Elaine.
But let's let's get into a little bit about Andy here because, as we said,
Yes.
Andy just has stories all the time. We met Andy earlier this year officially, and we heard he played with the Turtles. We're like, whoa, that's amazing. And then you showed us your book, and in your book, it's just you with so many musicians. For example, like Ringo, which is huge. We're huge Beatles fans, among so many others. Little Richard, a lot of our idols. It was so cool to see. And thank you for gifting us this book.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Because this is an amazing book, and there's so many awesome pictures.
we also got the book from Julie as well. She hooked us up with the cover.
Yes,
Shout
we
to
have
Julie.
to thank Julie.
If it wasn't for Julie, we'd not have met Andy.
That's correct.
So early.
And at that same table, I met Nick.
Yes.
So that was all at that same
I
moment.
don't know if he was here, though. Yeah.
And then we all went to the Nest.
Yes.
And I sang Happy Together.
That's
Yeah,
right.
first
Yes,
night.
we have a video
Right.
recording. Cue the video. Just kidding.
Yes.
Andy, what do you think about the experience of putting this whole book together? What was that like for you?
It was amazing because I'm a pack rat. So I saved every calendar, every contract, every postcard, every letter, every photo, every cassette, every album, every T-shirt, every button, every laminate.
Do you own a warehouse?
And I
Sounds
scanned
like a lot of stuff to store.
and I scanned it all.
Yeah.
I just spent years scanning all this stuff and categorizing and chronologically.
Amazing.
And then each picture tells a story.
Yeah.
So I'm looking
yeah.
at a picture with me and Little Richard and Chuck Berry on the Grammys.
Yeah.
That must be so beautiful.
Unbelievable.
Sometimes you look at like posters that you've played before, like you remember specifically those concerts of the posters that you played. It takes you right there. It's like, I only wish I collected half the posters and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yes,
Yeah,
when
very cool.
I was with Jimmy Carl Black, with Geronimo Black, that was the Frank Zappa offshoot. And we played all these gigs around the San Fernando Valley and, with Leonard Nimoy and Black Oak, Arkansas, and a group called Bush, which was a trio with Dominic Triano.
Oh,
Bush,
He's
yeah.
from Toronto.
Remember that?
Yes,
Dominic
right,
Triano's from
Dominic
Toronto.
Triano.
Isn't that why Bush had to like go name themselves
Bush
Bush,
X?
X?
I think
No,
so,
that's
yeah.
the same Bush. I think that's the British Bush.
We'll have to
with
Google
the-
that one.
We played a gig back in the day with Julian Triano. His like,
You did?
That was his nephew, I believe.
nephew, yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, that's so crazy. Like Dominic Troiano was actually huge in the Toronto sound rock and roll
Did
scene.
he play with his trio with Whitey on drums and Prakash
Not sure.
on bass?
I'm not sure, but
Prakash.
perhaps Robbie Lane out there would know
Wow.
the answer to that question.
Wow.
Definitely.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Shout out to Robbie Lane.
Shout out to Robbie Lane. So
Yeah.
Andy, our one of our musical mentors is a guy by the name of Robbie Lane, and he was a big Canadian idol back in the 60s, and he had his own television show. He's a really great guy, big supporter of ours, radio DJ. I hope one day you can make it to Toronto and meet Robbie. And Robbie, we're down to one camera. All right. Yeah. But anyways, we hope you can meet Robbie one day. That'd be such a great connection. And Robbie, we love you.
Did you want to
Anyways.
fix the camera?
Yeah.
that
Well,
stopped?
Justin's still rolling.
Ladies and
let's
gentlemen,
keep going.
technical problems.
And there's lights
Look at
flickering
that.
up there. It's
There
like,
it
what's
is.
going on here? I
he
saw
do
you.
it?
You saw it too.
Yeah.
You looked
Uh-oh.
and I was like, what is that?
Is it a battery?
Okay, we're still rolling here.
Yeah, we're still rolling.
There you go. Look at that.
Okay. Anyways,
Yeah, yeah.
Did it stop?
No, we're good. We got one
We're
going.
fine. We're fine.
Andy,
This is just part of our show.
It's
by
part of
the
this.
way.
This
Batteries.
is the show. It's a show about
Batteries.
nothing. It's Seinfeld, but just not at
Show
all.
about batteries.
But Andy, what's it been like hanging out with us for the past
48
weekend?
hours.
48 hours.
Yeah, I've been hanging out for 48 hours, sleeping on the couch.
Moving in.
I feel bad that we don't have enough room. We're not even
No.
sleeping in beds,
I know.
practically.
Share the hallway with Richie up there.
Yeah, you can share a hallway upstairs or the couch. I
Go
think you
sleep
got
with
the
me and the
better.
ghosts.
Sorry. Anyways,
Well, I'll tell you the truth.
That's what he's thinking, eh? Oh, who's waiting for me up
What kind of
there?
poltergeist I got floating around there.
Geisted
Go to
out.
bed, man.
okay. Sorry, Andy. What were you saying?
I've never seen anything like the Dreamboats. I mean, except for 1958, when all these guys are doing this stuff. They're doing all this on the stage and they're jumping around and doing shit.
Yeah.
Nobody's doing that. Only the Dreamboats are doing it. You're the only band that does this stuff. It's called showmanship. Because there's wonderful musicians and wonderful singers. But if they don't put on a show, it don't make it. And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the best of the best from the east to the west, way ahead of the rest. That was it. That's all I got to say.
The Dreamboats that I mentioned.
God. Let's pick Andy's brain here, guys.
Sure.
Let's pick his brain.
You know what? I'll tell you what we can do. It's really fun. If you look in the index,
Okay.
pick out any name you want, and I can tell you a story about
Okay.
any name.
I like
That's great. I
That's
like
a
that.
great idea. Just go to the index.
You got the talk show mug going
and
on
find
over
any
there.
name
eh?
you want.
No.
So you're like
Okay,
a talk
I
show
got-
host with the mug.
I got
booze,
one thing. I'm gonna get this started here, right here. Tell everyone about your experience. Was it like a musical director at the Grammys between Chuck Berry and Little Richard? Like, what's going on
Absolutely.
here? What happened?
Our idols.
Well, Little Richard and Chuck Berry were asked to give the award to the best album, which Stevie Wonder won.
What year?
1973 or 4? 73.
Wow.
And so the guy who ran the Grammys, his name was Ray Charles, but it wasn't Ray Charles. It was a white guy
bastard.
named Ray Charles.
A white guy.
Oh boy.
So he came up to me and says, could you do me a favor? We need to rehearse Richard and Chuck to give away the awards. And what they do is their hit records, like Tutti Frutti, Rudy, instead of Tutti Frutti, Al Green, he's clean. So they would change the lyrics of their hit records to the nominee's name.
Oh,
Nice.
So that's what
sure
our
they love
rehearsal
that.
was. So it was an upright piano, and Chuck had his guitar, and Richard just stood there. And Richard's here, and Chuck's over there on the other side of the piano. And we're rehearsing their hits.
God
and
damn.
I'm in a little room with Chuck Berry and Little Richard.
Wow.
Rehearsing their hits.
that's amazing.
And I'm going,
Hey man,
and
that's some shit.
yeah, that is, because the reason I became a musician
yeah.
was February 8th, 1964.
You know the day?
Is that the Ed Sullivan Show date?
Oh,
I think so.
That's the day, eh?
So those four lads on stage, I wanted to be them. I wanted to be a Beatle. And that's what changed my life. And who did Paul McCartney idolize?
Little Richard.
And who did John Lennon idolize?
Chuck Berry. And Elvis. And Elvis. They all idolized
Oh,
Elvis.
yes. Oh, yeah.
But Chuck Berry for sure, yeah.
Yeah, so there I was with these guys that the Beatles idolized. Full circle, I'm working with them.
Yeah.
So
That's
that
amazing.
to me was, and then of course it was really fun because both of their microphones went out.
Oh, yeah, okay.
It was live and
Oh,
nothing came out. And
that's brutal.
and then the way they arranged the band on stage, my grand piano was on a sliding platform, and I was right in the middle of camera one.
This is where we gotta
so
throw that
right in the
picture on.
center of the stage. But the drummer was way up in the top,
oh,
beyond my sight. I couldn't even see him.
Holy.
And the bass player's over there, elevated somewhere, and the trumpet player's over there, and the guitar player's over there, and it's everybody. The band is scattered all over the stage, so there was no
Interaction.
Monitor.
communication
Yeah.
with the endings and the beginnings of the next song.
wow.
So it was kind of a disaster with the mics going out, and then
Oh gosh.
No.
Sounds like a rough experience.
Yeah,
the
that's
song would end and go da 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 da, and the drummer would go clink clink.
Yeah.
You know,
oh,
and
wow.
it was just was but
Yeah.
that's the video.
Still figuring it
It's all
out.
about the visual, but like the monitor system and all that. That's how
Yeah.
important that is. And I don't even know how
How did
half
they
people
pull that
got
off?
away with not hearing themselves
Yeah,
sing.
like the Beatles, no monitors. They're just singing.
But then again, like who knows how long they're singing for? Could you get through like a 30-minute gig, 40-minute gig with no monitors?
You tell me, man.
Oh.
They weren't even going through monitors. They weren't even going through mains. They were going through like the like PA on like a baseball
I
field.
feel like for the first 7 years of the Dreamboats, I didn't hear myself at all through monitors. I will say that.
I felt like for the first 12 years I didn't hear myself.
Well, you know they're amazing because with no monitors and the screaming girls, and you hear the tape,
Yeah.
and they're right in
It's so
pitch.
tight.
Yeah,
And
they're
right,
amazing.
they're perfectly
I don't know
right
how
on.
they do it. I don't know.
It's
how they-
amazing.
Talent.
Well, you know they rehearsed, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
A few
They-
times.
They've been doing those
They,
songs.
they
Couple
lived
times.
with each other. John and Paul every day would religiously meet.
and the
and-
Hamburg
and-
Days playing every day.
Yep,
Like,
every
That's
day.
the great thing about having the record. I don't want to take it off topic, but about having the recording set up because it gets us together, just like playing music.
yeah.
Especially when we got the full thing going.
In the next phase, we're gonna have a full.
It's just got to be set up at all times.
Set
Like
up
these
at all
last
times.
couple of days, it's like we're really
Oh,
getting
I
things
can't
done.
wait.
You know, it's good vibes.
I know.
There's so many songs we can still bang out, like no problem.
And
kind
the
of
thing,
thing.
yeah, if we just had it set up where we didn't have to tear it down, we could just keep plowing through songs till
Yeah.
the finish
Yeah.
point. You know, move on to the next one.
And essentially, for everyone out there, what happened was that the person we're staying with, Nick DeVito, shout out to Nicky D. We do it every episode.
Hey, Nick.
Nick is in Vegas, and as soon as he left, sorry, Nick, we took the whole room apart and set up an entire drum set. We'll cue the picture right now. So it looked very different in here. And now we got to put it all back because
Yeah,
he
that's
comes
no
in.
We're
problem.
like a
It takes
third
2
of the way
seconds.
there.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
getting there.
I know, but
we'll mop the
there was
floors
a lot
and
of
everything.
gear. A lot of gear.
Oh, like
here.
just cables.
No, but it was good.
Yeah. But,
Great.
and sorry, we're not to take the attention away from,
No,
from
no, not
Andy
at all.
over here.
Sparked an idea.
Yeah.
What's really good about the Dreamboats is not only are they really good songwriters, singers, musicians, and entertainers, but they're self-contained. They have a studio.
Ish.
This is the guy right here. He runs the studio.
the guy.
Yeah.
And
That guy, pal.
A video guy and a wellness guy.
and I
Trainer.
I used to work Pro Tools, but he uses Logic, and he goes so fast. How he whips through that.
Yeah, oh
it's
yeah.
amazing. Sets up tracks, the plugins, gets every little levels, and it sets it on a loop so you can keep keep
until
on,
you nail it, you know.
All about those
keep on-
shortcuts.
Yeah.
He doesn't even sit there as an engineer. He walks around and grabs a
yeah. Get
watermelon.
Yeah.
I started this
Right.
looping system so I could go do shit while people are recording. Go cook, make a sandwich. They're like,
That's it.
You know
I'm
what?
like, no, do a few more.
It's not bad though because you let them alone and they can kind of do their
that's
thing.
what I
They
started
don't feel the
realizing. I
pressure
used to
on.
leave because people were so nervous to sing in the room with me, and I'd be like, I'll just go out for a sec, and then I'd be like, well, if I'm gonna let them go like 3 times, that's like 10 minutes or something.
Yeah.
Like I'll go make lunch or something, and then it just started to become a thing.
It's different when you can be under the gun, when especially when you're singing, like a person you've never like hung out with, or it's not like your bro or
Sure,
something.
even
like
if
that,
it's a
like-
bro, sometimes you just want to get in the mood of something, and just having someone right beside you while you're blasting out
Lost.
vocals.
Yeah.
Getting right blast.
Yeah.
But it's really wonderful to watch these guys record, because I've been in a lot of recording sessions, but they're just, it's all like there. And when the take is over, it's quiet for a second. And then gently, you guys just discuss it. You kind
Gently?
of go back for, say, what?
Sometimes it gets a little-
And they work it out, and they do another couple of takes, and it's just a great
the
process.
developing system.
They all know each other so well, it's easy to do it. Makes it really easy when you're all buddies. And
I think it's more like we're just trying to get to the finish line as quickly as
Yeah.
possible every time, because we're in a time restraint.
There's always something,
Yeah.
There's always something. We can't keep this set up for a week. It's like, a couple days, got to hammer it out. Like, we were literally sitting there, like, what song can we record? We got these drums. We couldn't think of anything because we're just under this pressure.
What's wonderful is they all play guitar, they all play drums, and you can probably play bass too if you really want
No,
it,
he
right?
has played, yeah.
Yeah, we did it
So
in the show
they
recently.
all play bass, guitar, and drums, so they can just switch off every song.
I know. We could. I would say everyone's a pretty good drummer. And you're a drummer as well.
Well, I haven't played every day like you guys.
There's one too many drummers in this
Yeah,
little semicircle.
But it's
have a drum
amazing
battle.
because he doesn't play drums all the time.
beat
I mean,
off.
you guys, you're the drummer, but when he sits down at the drums, bam, wham, smack,
I'm
and
not
then
even
he
the
sits
best
down at the
drummer of
drums,
the three of
and
those.
it's like he plays every day, and he's just
Yeah.
kicking it out. It's great.
Yeah.
So he's engineering and overdubbing and everything all at the same time. It's just
Well, we got you in the mix, and we had you playing Great Balls of Fire faster than you ever have in your life, I'm sure. Just breaking the keyboard there today.
Yeah, I break my keyboard.
for like good 20-something minutes straight.
Yeah.
That rocked.
It's tough to play a plastic synthesizer because it's
Like a
not
piano,
a
Are
resonant.
they weighted? Are they weighted keys?
Yeah,
Because it's not just
They're
ivory
weighted-
keys.
No, they're
it's
not.
I mean, the semi-weighted is different. I can imagine.
Yeah, they are a little semi-weighted, but
Yeah.
it's not like the
not the
real
real thing.
McCoy. You want a real live piano that kicks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you can do see what Jerry Lee Lewis is and Little Richard both when they did their high shit.
Yeah.
It wasn't notes. It was slapping the keys.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just hitting a bunch of keys.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like a mush, a little mush of high notes.
Yeah. And you can't
And
do
it's-
that.
When you
on-
solo that stuff, it's kind of like messy. But in the mix, it's just a lot about rhythms and the frequency coming through. It's cool.
a lot of things messy. Just let that mix just
Yeah, I only did 10 takes on that song.
That's
so
true,
he can,
10 takes.
He can edit the best
At a
stuff.
minute 44 per take.
Right, a minute 44. That is a fast song.
version.
But I'll tell you what I'm excited about. Yes, we recorded a bunch of other, but Happy Together.
Yeah.
That sounded really cool.
Yeah, it came together really well.
Yes.
I mean, it's still in the works, but
That's gonna be great.
yeah.
Oh, when he mixes it, I can't wait.
What else do we have to do? Is it pretty much?
well, there was
little
a-
bit
bells and
less?
whistles.
There was an oboe line.
Yeah.
The oboe line.
And after the fact,
I'm going to do the guitar, the actual guitar part on it as well.
Oh, right, if you wanted to make it
yeah,
authentic.
just layer it.
Yeah.
Because it'd make it more authentic, but
Because we got a harpsichord
couple
and
things.
a piano doing that.
maybe like
lick.
a tambourine. I don't know if there's any of that going on or whatever, but we'll just take a closer look.
Let's
Tell us about your experiences with the Turtles.
Yeah,
So
the
we gotta be
Turtles.
together here. Like,
Okay.
Like you played with them for 40 years.
40 years. And it was wonderful. When I first met Howard Kalin, they were doing a parade down Hollywood Boulevard, and Flo and Eddie were in in a Jeep, and they were waving to the audience, and they were, celebrity Flo and Eddie, and I had just joined the band. So my wife and I went to the parade. So Howard, as the Jeep drove by, he says, "Why don't you go crawl under the Jeep?"
To you?
Yeah, during the parade.
Okay.
That's Howard. And that's the sense of humor. And Mark and Howard always made fun of me, right?
Okay.
They even wrote a song called Andy, Andy, Andy. And it went like this. It went, Andy, 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 boom, boom, Andy, 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 boom, boom, fuck you.
Really?
And that's the song they wrote
like,
about
what's the
me.
punchline here?
That was the song they wrote about me.
Aw.
But we had really fun times. Beside all the different encounters, I should say.
Counters.
Encounters with the opposite
third
species.
kind. Okay.
But like
Aliens?
for instance, we flew to Australia to do a tour.
Yeah.
And our first date was Toowoomba.
Woomba.
And we drove out there, and the crew was setting up all the gear, and we had sound check, and there were 9 people on the crew, the lights and sound, and so we went back to the hotel, and we had dinner and got ready and went back to the gig, to play the gig in Toowoomba.
That was your first show was in Australia?
First show in Australia with 1975.
Wow.
With the Turtles.
And had it come out yet? No. When was Happy Together? When did that come out?
67 was Happy
Oh, so it's been out for a while. Okay,
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, and so we get to the venue, nobody showed up. Only the same 9 people from the stage crew were there. So we played the concert to the stage crew.
Aw.
And we were scared shitless.
What was the venue like?
That was our opening night in Toowoomba. It was like a high school gymnasium.
And there was nobody. Why was there nobody there?
Nobody showed up.
Why? Was it not promoted?
So
or?
we freaked out, and the promoter said, "You're going to Melbourne tomorrow, so it's a big city," and it was sold out, and it was great.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Oh, nice.
And as a matter of fact, Lou Reed was on the bill.
Cool. Very cool.
So we did Walk on the Wild Side, And so touring with Flo and Eddie, I got to meet everybody I ever wanted to meet.
Yeah.
Peter and Gordon,
Nice.
Tommy Rowe, Gary Puckett, just on and on with all this Spanky and our gang, just all these groups. And you remember,
I know.
Young Girl, Get Out of My Mind.
Yeah.
So, but the flight over to Australia was great because in those days, there was no 9/11. So the pilots left the door open. And so I told the stewardess, it was a stewardess, not a flight attendant. I said, "We're from the Turtles. Remember the Turtles? Happy Together?" Oh, really?
Yeah.
So she goes up to the pilot and she says, "Hey, we got the guys from the Turtles on the plane."
Yeah.
And he says, "Bring them up here." So Mark Volman was next to me, and I was sitting, and "Come on, the pilot wants to meet you." So we walk into the cockpit, and there was 2 seats with seat belts that you fold down from the wall.
Yeah.
And so Mark and I were sitting there while they're flying the 747 to Australia. So he says, "You play backgammon?" I said, "Yeah, I do." So we whipped out.
So you're playing it today?
So we played backgammon. I played backgammon with the pilot, and we were all sitting there, all these
Mid-flight.
and I'm looking above the window
Yeah.
of the airplane, and there's this row of numbers on a wheel. And I looked at it, and I said, "What's that?" And he goes, "Go ahead, turn the numbers. See what happens." So I reach up with my finger, and I turn the numbers. And the 747 goes,
Oh.
So I was autopilot. I was driving the airplane with my finger.
Whoa.
And there were 345 souls aboard. And I was driving the airplane with my finger. And then he says, okay, put it back. So I put the numbers back and,
Nice.
and the plane straightened out.
That's awesome,
so
man.
I flew a 747 with
That's
that finger.
that's so cool.
Wow.
insane.
The Wright
Whole flight
brothers
of
would
people.
be proud.
So, right? How often do you run into stuff like that?
Hey,
Not yet.
Not every day you get to fly in a plane with your index finger.
So,
amazing.
so did you want to pick out a name?
Let's
You can
pick
go
out
to
a
the
name.
index.
Well,
you want to
can I just ask you
just do
because-
whatever.
Look, we see this picture of you with Ringo Starr. Ringo
Yes.
of the Beatles, favorite band. How? Why? I remember reading it, but maybe you can tell the viewers out here how that happened.
This is the premonition.
Premonition.
1968, I moved to California from New York. I'm sitting in my Hollywood place playing the harpsichord. And then all of a sudden I said, I had a vision that a Beatle was in my living room and he sat down next to me and took his shoes off.
We had a vision
Beatle.
like that too, except it was
And
a
this
cockroach.
is 1968, right?
Yeah.
And that was this little premonition I had. I was daydreaming.
Wow.
Oh, a Beatle was over my house and he took his shoes off and he was sitting right next to me. So this is 1968. In 1992, Harry Nilsson brought Ringo Starr over to my living room. It was 100 degrees out. I had to turn off the air conditioner so it won't pick up on the mic.
Yeah.
Because Ringo was doing narration for children's books.
Wow.
And so Ringo, I was set here with my Fostex 4-track cassette.
I used to have that.
Fostex 4-track cassette. And a Shure SM58, and Ringo was sitting next to me. And what did he do? He took his shoes off.
Oh.
So the premonition from
true.
1968
Crazy.
came true with a Beatle
25 years
in
later
my
or
house,
something?
sitting next to me with the shoes
That's
off.
amazing.
That is nuts. You willed it into existence.
You worked with them. That's cool.
Yes.
You
Yeah,
worked
just
with a
hang out,
Beatle,
work.
and what were your thoughts like? What went through your mind when you saw Ringo?
It was a dream come true. I mean,
Could you believe was it
I'm in my house, and there's Harry Nilsson pulling up in his Mercedes, and he gets out, and Ringo
Nailed
gets
it.
out, and they're walking up the driveway to my house, and I'm going, "Yeah."
Are you in the window just like creeping?
And, I go, "Hi, Ringo." Hello, hi.
Yeah.
Oh my
and what's Ringo like on first meeting him? Is
He was gentle and kind and nice and sweet and normal.
normal?
Just sort of like us, maybe.
That's
But,
cool.
Yeah, he was great. And the best part of the recording session was the end when we were done.
Okay.
So I said, Ringo, I have a flavor. And he says, a flavor? I says, yeah, would you mind if Harry took our picture? Because I had a Kodak throwaway camera, the little
nice.
yellow box. So Harry got the camera, and Ringo and I got up there, and he took our picture. Then I said, let me take your picture. So I took the picture of Ringo and Harry in my living room,
Yeah.
So then Ringo says, I got some really good stories I'd like to tell you. You want to hear how we came up with the name Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band? And Harry and I go, yeah. And so Ringo says, Mal Evans used to set up Ringo's drums. He used to bring the amps in. Him and Paul McCartney would go to Egypt and Africa and travel around. And he was their roadie guy when they were all frozen as a pancake in the back of the van when the windshield broke.
Sure.
So Mal Evans was on the plane with Paul McCartney, and they're eating dinner with the food and the salt and the pepper.
Yeah.
So Paul says to Mal, this is Ringo talking.
Yeah.
Paul says to Mal, I want to do an album with a fictitious band that's us, but it's not us.
Yeah.
It's another name, and I want to make it like a story thing, So Mal was thinking, and he's right next to Paul, and he picks up the pepper, and he goes, why don't you call it Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. And it was Mal Evans that thought of that.
Interesting.
And then Paul said, oh, boop, boop, zip, boop. You know, and
I like that. I like that one, you know.
so it's kind of cool stuff that I happens.
Yeah, oh,
when
yeah.
you're, you know, and then after the session, we went to Ringo's house, and Barbara Bach was there, his wife.
Oh.
And she calls him
Richard Starkey.
He just calls him Rich.
Yeah,
Hey,
I heard
Rich.
he's rich.
So, I had to go to the bathroom. So I said, do you mind? Well, yeah, right around the corner over there. So I walk over there to get in the bathroom, and as I'm peeing, looking at the wall, a platinum album, It Don't Come Easy.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Right? You're
Ringo.
peeing and you're looking, and it don't come easy.
He's got his gold or his platinum record, right?
Yeah, but
Wow.
that's the thing. It's like, you don't come easy when. Oh, never mind. But anyhow, that was Ringo's platinum album, right over the toilets.
Wow.
So you're looking at it as you're.
Ringo.
Yeah. So I got back in the living room, and he's got a blue acoustic guitar and a red acoustic guitar on both sides of his couch. And they have the inlay of the Ringo Starr in the fretboard.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
So Harry's sitting there, Ringo's sitting there, I'm across the living room, and I'm looking at the guitars, and I said, do you mind if I play that guitar? Go right ahead. So I get up and I pick up the acoustic, and then I start strumming in the key G. And then Harry goes, listen for your footsteps coming up. And he's singing it baritone because the original's in C.
Okay.
And this was in G, so he was down in this low range. And then Ringo starts to join in the fifth.
Oh.
So they were singing in fifths.
Interesting.
Tense
So
harmony.
here I am strumming in the wrong key, but they're singing, don't pass me by. And
That's awesome.
so
you
there
jammed
I
the
am
Beatles
with,
song.
Yeah, so
with
I'm
Ringo.
sitting there with Ringo and Harry strumming the wrong key.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Pretty epic.
That's
See, there's stuff like that, that's great.
That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, a Beatle in your living
A
room.
Beatle in my house. I was thinking of writing a song. I had a Beatle in my house. I had
It
a
was
Beatle
Ringo.
in my house.
Does anybody need a drink?
You know. Yeah.
Are you good? Do you need a drink?
I
Water
do.
or something?
sure.
Yeah? I'll grab a drink.
Still some.
I could use
Okay.
a top up. So while Justin goes for a drink, Andy, what would you
Yeah.
say? What would you say is your best musical memory performance-wise? Like a moment where you're just like, I can't believe this. And you've probably had many, but what is the one that stands out? Like this is just the top
Okay.
point of any performance.
I apologize. There's 3 of them that are tied.
Perfect.
One is doing the national anthem in the middle of the big A in Anaheim, the Angels Stadium, and the Los Angeles Rams were playing the Minnesota Vikings.
Cool.
And Flo and Eddie were asked to do the national anthem. So I learned the song in the wrong key, but luckily the keyboard had a transposition button. So Howard was trying to find, the last note of the song, with the land of the free and the home, the free. He had to find the right, better, comfortable high note. So we found the right key, and so at the beginning, it was a grass field.
Yeah.
And I was wearing white pants with a white shirt on a grass field, kneeling down, setting up the keyboard.
Yeah.
So I had green knees from the grass field.
Oh, okay.
So that's one thing I had. And the camera's shooting right at me with the green knees. And then so we do the national anthem. Now in the stadium with 70,000 people, you hit a note on the organ.
Yeah.
And it takes a second and a half for it to come back to you.
Yeah.
So when the audience is singing along with the national anthem, they're out of sync.
Yeah. I got you.
You're waiting for it to come around. So that was really tough. I really had to concentrate on the tempo.
Sure.
Because I was getting thrown off by the echo in the stadium.
Crazy.
So that was really fun.
So that was the top game.
And another big one was my very first show with Little Richard.
Okay.
You know, no rehearsal. You know, if you don't know Tutti Frutti, Good Golly Miss Molly, Rip It Up, and, you know, it's 3 chords. Hello. And so, you know, never met him. And we're at Hershey, Pennsylvania at this huge stadium. And I'm on the Hammond B3. And we're on the stage and he comes roaring out. And he just like goosebumps. It was, you know, he just went crazy. And he was amazing. He was the best entertainer I've ever worked with.
How
Ever.
could that feel playing keys for a guy that rips the keys like he does? You know, I feel like that would be a level of intimidation to go play someone's instrument
yeah.
that's
Yeah.
like that kind of legendary guy.
Well, on some of the shows we did on that tour, when he got off the piano, I would get off the Hammond B3 and go over to the piano and finish the show on the piano because he'd be jumping all over the stage. So, but when we played Madison Square Garden with Little Richard,
Amazing.
He jumped up on the Hammond B3. So I'm here rocking around, and he's right up there dripping sweat on me. You know, he's like right on top of me.
Wow.
So yeah, he would go lean over the audience and drip sweat on them and say, "Pardon my sweat, it's holy water."
Would you say he's one of the most intense
holy water.
performers you've ever seen, guys? Like,
Oh my God, he was the best performer ever.
Yeah.
Literal. I mean, just the best.
Best rock and roll vocals.
Unbelievable vocals.
Little Richard can't top him. That's it.
It was
That's that.
great. It was woo. There's a story about the Beatles when they met him.
Yeah.
That Paul McCartney and Little Richard told me this story. He says, you know, the Beatles loved me. They came over and Paul and I were sitting in the corner of the hotel room on the floor practicing woo.
Oh, wow.
They were going back and forth trying to get the woo.
no
And that was
way.
the story that Little Richard told me about his meeting with Paul McCartney.
That's awesome. Oh, Paul must have loved that.
And there's also a video, an interview with Little Richard about Paul McCartney. And the guy was asking Richard what he thought of Paul doing Long Tall Sally.
Yeah.
And he says, oh, he's the best, you know? So, and Paul was damn good.
Oh, he murdered that track.
Unbelievable. Just like I'm Down.
I was just
How
going to
can
say,
you-
there's a Beatles song, I'm Down. You know that one?
Yes, how can you laugh? Key of G.
And it was Paul like trying to do a Little Richard.
It is
He
Little
wrote,
Richard,
like,
right.
A Little Richard song. You know what I mean?
It's great.
So cool.
Yeah, that's good.
That's awesome. So, okay. So Little Richard. You had a third show though. That was
Which
we were saying your
a long
most
answer.
memorable shows.
Oh, my most
said your
memorable
national
show.
anthem?
Right, the
National Anthem.
Oh yeah, the other one was a Turtle concert, and we were opening act for the Jefferson Starship during the Red Octopus tour. Okay. 1975 again. That was a big year for me. And anyway, so, you know, Grace Slick and Marty Ballin and, you know, the whole band. And we became friends because we did every night together.
Yeah.
And Grace and I would go back to my room with the lighting guy named David Johnson. And they were boyfriend, girlfriend. So
Yeah.
Grace and David were friends. But we would come back to my room. I would smoke a joint. She would drink her Southern Comfort
Yeah,
and stuff. But so during our show, Flo and Eddie always had satire, something funny.
yeah.
So we were making fun of George Harrison when he lost his voice during the Dark Horse tour.
Oh.
He actually literally lost couldn't sing. So we're playing My Sweet Lord, and Mark Volman is imitating George Harrison. Oh, my Lord, I really want to sing. And he was cracking up, and he couldn't sing. So Howard gets on the mic, and he goes, take it, Billy. And he points at me like I'm Billy Preston. Well, he kind of builds it up. He says, you know, we need somebody to take over here, George. You know, take it, Billy. So before that happened, Marty Ballin, you know, the other lead singer in the Jefferson,
Okay.
He was standing next to me at the Hammond B3, and I had a black afro wig.
Okay.
So I had to pick up all my hair and stuff it in a ball, and then Marty Ballin would take the wig and put the wig on my head.
Okay.
Then I had these Hollywood sunglasses with the dollar signs in, big sunglasses.
Nice.
And I put that on. So when Howard pointed at me, "Take it, Billy," I did the opening piano from Nothing Is Nothing. Dun 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 dun. That's all I played, and then the entire stadium went nuts. They all cheered like I was Billy Preston. And I came out to the front of the stage with Howard and Mark, and I held up the peace sign and all did this shit. And that was exciting. I got 50,000 people cheering at me while I'm
awesome,
doing
man.
this,
Doing the show.
So that's the kind of stuff, playing with Little Richard and doing the national anthem and being Billy Preston.
You've had so
Billy.
many different moments with so many different artists. That's so it's so crazy, and I think it's special the fact that you've encountered all these people. I mean, I can even ask you just for my dad's sake over here. Shout out to my dad, Brad. Hendrix. What's your Hendrix experience?
Oh my God. Okay, so I moved to California in 1968, and 2 weeks later, my mom got me a job working for Pulsar Records, and her friend Erwin Garr, that was his label. And he had Graham Bond, who was with Ginger Baker and Jack Bruce before the Cream.
Okay.
He had a blues band called the Graham Bond Organization. And Mac Rabenak, Dr. John the Night Tripper, he was on the label. And and the producer that was on that label was Harold Batiste, who did Sonny and Cher's I Got You, Babe. He produced that.
Cool.
And arranged all the stuff with the little do-do-do-do-do-do,
Nice.
Yeah. Anyway, so Graham Bond calls me up. My job was a gopher, $35 a week. My VW bus, I would pick up the musicians, take them to the gig or the studio, take Xerox, take pictures for Billboard or Cashbox. I was the gopher. So Graham Bond calls me up. He says, "We got a jam session. Bring your harpsichord." So I pick up Graham Bond and we go to the studio, and Mitch Mitchell is setting up the drums. And Lowell George from Little Feat is practicing the flute. And Graham Bond was on the Hammond B3, and Jack Cassidy, the bass player from the Jefferson Airplane, was on bass.
Wow.
So I'm 20 years old, and all these major celebrities. So I'm setting up my harpsichord and screwing the leg on, and I feel something behind me, and in walks Jimi Hendrix with two blonde chicks, one carrying his amp and one carrying his guitar.
Whoa.
And he walks in the studio, and I'm here at the harpsichord, and he sits down right next to me. And he puts his amp over there, and he tunes it up, and he starts playing the blues in A, right? Now, I had a Leslie speaker,
Yeah.
so I could make it the sound of the harpsichord, do the Leslie stuff or chorale. So he's in the key of A, so I was just droning an A octave thing with the Leslie, with the harpsichord.
Yeah.
And he was digging it. So I got to jam with Jimi Hendrix.
Oh my
Jesus,
God.
With Lowell George, Mitch Mitchell, Jack Cassidy, and Graham Bond.
And where was this?
At TT&G Studios in Hollywood, California, 1968.
Wow.
Probably October.
Wow.
And at the end of the recording session, they're breaking down all the stuff, and Jimi Hendrix is standing in the corner of the studio, and he, "Come on, over here," and he hands me a joint, right? So he takes a hit, and he hands me a joint, and then the roadie kid comes over, and we're standing a little circle in the corner smoking a joint. So Hendrix starts to go, beep, boo, with his mouth, right? So he hands me the joint, and I take a hit, and I go, ka-tuk, tuk, jack, ka-tuk, jack. So So I was the drummer, he was the lead guitar. Then I handed the joint to the roadie guy, and he was the bass. So we were doing a power trio, smoking a joint in the corner of the room with our mouths with Jimi Hendrix.
That's
So this is the kind of shit that I go
smoked a
through.
joint with Jimi Hendrix.
Well, smoked a joint with Jimi Hendrix.
And jam.
Yes.
Wow.
Dad, I hope you like that story.
That's why my book is full of that.
Wow.
It's full of it.
The book. Let's show the book.
You guys
Andy,
got to
where-
check this book out online.
Where can people get the book?
Amazon.
Amazon.
And it's real easy. Just Google the most famous musician you never heard of.
Yes.
And it'll pop right up, and you can spend all your hard-earned
pictures on the
money.
back?
Oh, yeah, show the pictures on the back. Harry Nilsson, Ringo Starr, Jimmy Webb, Linda Ronstadt, Michelle Phillips.
Michelle Phillips, eh?
Yeah, Michelle Phillips.
The Mamas and the Papas.
Yeah, we played a gig with them, the
That's
Mamas
awesome.
and Papas. And nobody in the Mamas and Papas were on the stage in the band. The only recognizable person was, are you going to San Francisco, wearing flowers in your hair? What was his name? Okay, he was the only guy in the band that anybody knew, but nobody on the stage was from the Mamas and Papas.
Oh, interesting.
And so they were the opening act. They were like Las Vegas people.
Oh,
But
weird.
like a tribute.
what happened was
Like a tribute thing or something.
one of the guys was still living, the tall guy. And so nobody was touring. So they hired this other band to say they were the Mamas and Papas. And they get royalties from the gig. So half the audience walked out and demanded their money back because nobody on the stage was Michelle Phillips or anybody from the Mamas and Papas.
You know what? Actually, the bass player, a band I used to play in back in the day was called Ill Scarlet, and the bass player before me, his name was John Doherty, and his dad was from the Mamas and Papas.
Wow.
So his dad wrote California Dream, and I believe
Monday,
he wrote it.
he sang Monday, Monday. You know,
Wow, Monday.
that was and he lived in Mississauga and passed
he lived in
away.
Mississauga.
It's in our hometown. So Justin kind of played.
And his son, obviously just like amazing voice, crazy talented on
looks like
multiple
him too.
drummer, bass player, guitars, and the like voice of an angel. Just when he sings, like because he was in a couple bands that I was just friends with. And when you'd hear him sing in the studio, it's just like this epic, angelic voice. Very cool. John, epic voice.
Wow.
Such a crazy tie to our city, that one of, the Mamas
sure.
and Papas lived and passed away, sadly, at an early age in Mississauga.
Wow, yeah.
Crazy, yeah.
So anyhow, Michelle Phillips comes backstage
Yeah.
before we come on the show. Oh, after we finished our set, she came back to congratulate us on a good show. I said, why aren't you on the stage with the Mamas and Papas? You're the only original member.
Yeah.
And she just smiled and put her arm around me and giggled. And that was Michelle Phillips.
Wow.
Yeah. I got to meet Grace Slick and Michelle Phillips and Linda Ronstadt.
Cool.
I mean, just hanging out with Linda Ronstadt? God.
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
Wow.
I met her twice with Jimmy Webb. So it was Harry Nilsson and Jimmy Webb and Linda Ronstadt. I mean, these are major icons.
I don't know how much more GoPro we're going to have. I want to ask you, I think we might even be winding down is like, if you look back of all the years, what was the favorite year?
75.
75. You know it already.
That's you on the front of the book here, right? 75?
Yeah, that's my picture in 1975.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was a great year because I was working with the Turtles and Little Richard in that year. And I did the Grammys in 73. But 75 was the touring and with...
So how much of the year were you on the road?
All the year.
The whole year?
Yeah. When I came home from the Turtles tour, I would go out with Little Richard.
Oh, nice.
Then I come home and we do another Turtles tour.
What countries were you touring to?
What's that?
Was it all in North America? Or were you going around the world?
Well, I went
I guess you were in Australia.
Australia 3 times. Once with Little Richard and twice with the Turtles.
Cool.
And we toured. I went to Europe with Flo and Eddie, the Turtles, doing a 2.5 man show.
Yeah, that's
like
right. You were
a
saying.
vaudeville. with stuffed animals and toys and a slideshow showing the early days with the Crossfires, a surf band before they were the Turtles. And anyhow, so we did it. I was the half man. It's a 2.5 man show.
I didn't want to ask, but I was going to say.
So I had
the way they
those guys, ripping on you.
give you a
I
hard
know,
time,
it was
eh?
great. Like when we did
Guys.
Happy Together, they played the track from the actual master.
Cool.
So I played along with it on the piano, and but we did comedy routines, like the hippo limbo, and they'd get a microphone stand as the limbo stick, and Mark would have a stuffed animal, a hippo, and he would shove it under the thing, step on it, kick it through, and
we should do a little limbo at our show.
I was going to say, what year did you start playing with them?
1973.
Okay.
And my
73.
last concert with the Turtles was 2013.
I think
so
you
that
mentioned-
was 40 years.
Right on. Wow.
But on that 2.5 man show, it was hilarious. We did a lot of funny stuff. Instead of Pink Floyd's The Fence, instead of Pink Floyd's The Wall, it was Pink Flo and Eddie's The Fence.
The fence.
And we'd get a rattan fence and we'd roll it out on stage. And I didn't want to get splinters on my hand, so I had an aardvark, like a toy of an aardvark, like a soft little cuddly aardvark.
Yeah.
And so I would use that to hold the rattan fence, and then they would play. We don't get no education, right? But it was sped up, so it was like Chipmunks. We don't need no education.
Nice,
We
nice.
don't need no social control. So when we did that, every time the voices sang in the Chipmunks, we'd get up from behind the fence and wave these hippos and dinosaurs and giraffes and all these stuffed animals.
And different dynamic with like stage shows, I guess you can say.
Like
but-
the Muppets.
It was like a vaudeville show.
Wow.
And they had a slideshow, and they actually showed that naked picture of me
They showed the
in the
naked picture.
slideshow. In New
showed
Zealand, I
We
met
show
a
the naked
girl.
picture to our viewers.
All right, let's put the picture up. No.
Andy showed us a naked picture of him. I actually got my reaction.
when I was in
Cue
that,
the reaction.
and that's the same age, in 1975, I took that naked picture.
It's a big year for you. Whoa.
Oh, actually, she took it, and I took one of her too.
Yeah.
And then you had to get it developed, so someone else saw
And
it.
it
Too.
was amazing. They developed it, and I didn't get busted.
Wow.
Amazing.
And that's that.
And that's that.
Yeah, and that's that.
And with that, what more can we say, ladies and gentlemen? Andy Cahan, thank you for
Yay.
being with us here today.
Oh, are we wrapping it? What
We're
time is
wrapping
it?
it.
I think we
Is
are.
that it? Is that
We're
it?
wrapping it.
Yes. Hello. Oh, it's been an hour.
Yeah,
We
it's
got to
been
wrap
great.
it. Andy, it's been an absolute pleasure
been a
hanging with
slice,
you
Andy. You're the
for the
best,
last
Andy.
48 hours. We just touched upon everything, but please check out Andy's book, The Most Famous Musician You've Never Heard of. It's on Amazon. Look him up. Andy Cahan, amazing friend and musician. Thank you.
Do you think it's too premature to mention anything about November 9th?
No, it's not premature
So
at
we
all.
can say something about that?
Let's do it.
Okay. Well, the Grammy Museum has asked me to do meet and greet autograph book signing.
Yes.
And I plan on having live music. And I was wondering if you guys knew anybody who's in a band.
I mean, we've met a few bands since we've been down here. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, sure. We'll play with you at the Grammy Museum.
Yeah.
Sure, Andy.
So
Yeah,
that's
man.
what's going to happen.
The
November
secrets of
9th.
November 9th. All right, we better start
We're
practicing.
all going to be on that stage playing Sugar, Sugar. Dun, 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 dun.
No way.
Honey, honey.
Really? That's awesome.
I don't know. But if anyone has made it this far in the podcast,
Right.
you got a little inside information right
Yes,
now.
this is very delicate stories. We don't want it to get out. We don't want to get busted.
There it is.
And on that note, that's that.
That's
That's that.
Oh, we had a problem. I mean, we tried to do everything we could.